I've seen in quite a while. This is the Dell XPS 13. I really do like the LG Gram. So I've already done a full video on this. What's nice is that when I'm at the office, I can plug it in via USB-C to a monitor and use it like a desktop for stuff like email and notes. And when I'm on the go, not only does it have some of the best battery life I've ever tested, but it's also super lightweight and portable. That's where the XPS 13 comes in. So the XPS 13 has been around for a couple years now, but this is the most recent version. What makes it really special is that it is one of the very first laptops to ship with the 8th generation Intel Core processors. Now normally that doesn't sound like it would be any kind of huge difference, but in this case, it means it is going to be a lot faster. At least I hope so. One of the nice things about the XPS 13 is that it actually is made out of aluminum, and I can immediately tell that while it is definitely a little bit heavier than the Gram, it feels really substantial. Pop this guy open, and one of the first things you're going to see is the fairly large 13.3-inch display and a very, very small chassis. So when the XPS 13 first came out, this sort of bezel was really impressive. Now it's getting a little bit more common, but it still looks really nice. The outside of the XPS 13 is all aluminum, but on the inside it has this carbon fiber finish. It actually feels pretty good. It almost feels a little bit more rubbery than you would expect out of carbon fiber, but it's nice and comfortable. There's also a nice selection of ports. So not only do we have our power in, but we also have a Thunderbolt 3 port, which you can also use to power the laptop, a USB 3.0 port, headphone jack, as well as the battery indicator, which looks like it's dead, which is cool. And if we flip it over to the other side, what you're going to find is another USB 3.0 port as well as a full-size SD card reader. Having that Thunderbolt 3 port is nice, as not only does it double as a USB-C port, but you can also do stuff like connect a 4K monitor to it, accept power in, and in theory you could connect it to an external GPU for better gaming performance, although unfortunately it only uses 2 lanes of PCIe, which means that that's probably not going to be a great idea. It will get bottlenecked. The display is 13.3 inches with a 1080p resolution, but it is not a touchscreen. If you want that, you have to upgrade to the 1800p model, which is a lot more expensive. Now I actually like 1080p as I feel like it's a good sort of sweet spot between screen resolution as well as battery life, and this panel is decent. So the color is fine, viewing angles are solid, however it just doesn't get quite as bright as I would like. The biggest problem with the display is that it means that the webcam has to be put in the left corner, which means that it looks really weird. Not only are you looking up at my nose, but I'm always looking to the side of the laptop.
Hey guys, this is Austin, and this laptop might have some of the best battery life in the world.
And this laptop has pretty decent speakers. So one of my issues with the Gram was that the speakers were a little bit tinny. However here, even though they're not front firing, they come out the sides, it sounds a lot better. I also like the keyboard and trackpad. So the keyboard has nice spacing, the feel is good and it's backlit, and the trackpad uses Windows Precision drivers. So no, it's not quite as good as something like a glass trackpad on a MacBook, but it is right up there. My only real issue is that to get a touchscreen, you have to pay another $350, which to me is kind of hard to justify. What really makes this new XPS 13 stand out though are those 8th generation core processors. Now, typically when you go from one processor to the next as far as generations go, it's usually not a huge difference. But with this guy, we're going from dual core processors to quad core, and in a small, thin and light laptop like this, that makes a huge difference. This XPS 13 is powered by the i7-8550U. So the base clock is 1.8 gigahertz, but it's almost always above that, as you guys will see in a minute, and it can turbo all the way up to 4 gigahertz. Now that's backed up by 8 gigabytes of RAM and a 256 gig NVMe SSD. Run this guy through Geekbench, and I legitimately had to triple check my results. Not only is this one of the fastest laptops I've ever tested as far as single-threaded performance goes, but even with multi-threaded, it is right up there with high-end Core i7s from gaming laptops of last year. One thing to keep in mind is that this is still a 15-watt processor. So for longer sustained use, such as gaming or rendering, you will see the clock speed start to dip, but for most stuff like video editing or web browsing, you're gonna see it be incredibly fast. Unfortunately, gaming performance doesn't see the same kind of gains. So here on Rocket League, we're getting anywhere between 40 to 50 frames per second at 720p quality, which is fine for lighter titles, but it's really not going to see a major benefit over something like Skylake or Kaby Lake. Under normal usage, the laptop is basically silent. However, once you fire up something like a game or some video editing, you'll see that the fan does get a little bit noisy. Dell claims that you can get 13 hours of battery life streaming video and about 22 hours of light usage, which may be a little bit of an exaggeration, but with a 60 watt hour battery, it should absolutely last you all day. There is a lot to like with the XPS 13. So at $1,300, I feel like this spec is a little bit expensive. However, once you can actually get a Core i5 in this guy, and especially if they add a more affordable touchscreen version, this is gonna be hard to beat. I am really excited to see these new processors roll out to more and more laptops. Having this much power in such a thin and light laptop honestly is a game changer for me. So what do you guys think about the XPS 13 as well as